You will overthrow empires. You will execute my judgment. But then, something even deeper. You will raise up prophets. The voice wasn't just restoring the present, it was building the future. Call Elisha, son of Shaphat, a name that until then meant nothing, but which carried continuity. He will inherit your mantle. The mantle, a symbol of authority, of calling, of legacy. Elijah had asked to die, but God was multiplying his life. His ministry would not end there. It would continue through another. The flame would not go out. It would be passed on. The prophet who thought he was alone discovered that heaven was already moving, preparing successors, organizing the unseen. And what began with fire on Carmel would not end in the silence of the desert. It would continue beyond him, far beyond. But while heaven was setting its plans, on earth, another story was unfolding. Ahab, a man of palaces, of wealth, of power, set his eyes on something small, a vineyard, beside his palace in Jezreel. It belonged to a simple man, Naboth. But that vineyard was not just land. It was inheritance. It was identity. It was promise passed down through generations, a sacred symbol of belonging. Ahab desired it, as if it were ordinary, as if everything could be bought. He offered exchange. He offered value. But Naboth answered, firm, unshaken.
So, you accept?
Not my king. May the Lord forbid me from giving you the inheritance of my ancestors.
It was not stubbornness. It was faithfulness. Faithfulness to the law. Faithfulness to the covenant. But Ahab did not understand. He returned to the palace, angry, defeated, like a powerful man unable to deal with a no. He lay down, turned his face to the wall, refused to eat. The king of Israel, reduced to the silence of frustration. And then Jezebel entered. And when she saw him, her eyes showed no compassion. They showed contempt.
Are you the king of Israel? Then get up, eat and be merry. I will give you Naboth's vineyard.
But what she offered was not a solution. It was a crime. Jezebel acted without hesitation, without conscience. Letters were written in the name of the king, sealed with authority, sent to the leaders of the city. And the order was clear: a staging, a fast, an assembly, an accusation. Naboth would be placed in the spotlight, not to be honored, but to be condemned. Two men, wicked, would be the witnesses, false, and the lie was proclaimed as truth.
It was him, that man. He blasphemed against God and against the king. He deserves to be punished.
The crowd reacted, not with discernment, but with fury, driven by power. They dragged Naboth outside the city, and there, under the weight of stones, life was taken. Silently, unjustly, definitively. Jezebel received the news without emotion, without guilt, only efficiency.
Rise, my king. Take possession of Naboth's vineyard, which is now yours, for he is no longer alive.
The king went down, confident, to take what never belonged to him, not knowing that heaven had already responded. Elijah was coming, the man of the wilderness,
of the rough mantle, of the cutting word. He appeared in the vineyard, and his presence interrupted the moment, like thunder in an open sky. Ahab stopped, and there the confrontation happened, not between two men, but between a king and the justice of God.
Ahab, son of Omri, king of Israel, you killed and also took possession? Truly I tell you, in the very place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, dogs will lick up your blood, yes, yours.
Silence fell over the vineyard, heavy, dense. Ahab trembled. The man who bowed before Jezebel now trembled before God.
So you found me, my enemy?
I found you because you sold yourself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord.
I will destroy your descendants. I will bring evil upon you. The dogs will devour Jezebel.
Every word carried eternal weight. The vineyard, that should have been a place of life, was now a stage of judgment. Where there should have been harvest, there was condemnation. The scriptures say, there was never a king like Ahab, who sold himself to do evil, driven by Jezebel. Evil had ceased to be an exception. It had become a system, politics, law. But even in the midst of this empire of corruption, one voice remained. A man with a simple mantle, but with an authority no throne could surpass. And he rose to declare that there is no power on earth greater than the judgment of the Most High. The message struck Ahab like an invisible sword, piercing not only his ears, but the deepest part of his spirit. The king, the one who had hardened his heart so many times, now broke. He tore his garments before everyone, put on sackcloth, fasted, and walked in humility, like someone who had finally understood the weight of his own sin. And the Lord, rich in mercy, looked upon that humiliation, not as a performance, but as a sign. So the judgment was restrained, not canceled, but delayed. It would not come upon him, but upon his descendants. For God is just, but also patient. And in that heavy silence, a truth echoed like restrained thunder. The voice of the prophet does not bow to crowns, is not intimidated by thrones, does not negotiate with power. When kings corrupt themselves, God raises voices, voices that tear through comfort, that expose sin, that remind that the earth does not belong to men, but to the Lord. The vineyard of Naboth, that small piece of land stained with blood, became more than an injustice. It became a testimony, an eternal sign that no act of violence goes unnoticed, that innocent blood cries out and is never forgotten in heaven.
Time passed, and as so often happens in history, a new king arose, but not a new heart. After the death of Ahab, his son Ahaziah took the throne, and with him came the repetition of the same errors, the same idols, the same crooked paths, the same provocation against the God of Israel. It was as if the lessons of the past had been buried with the dead. Then, on an ordinary day, without warning, destiny reached him. Ahaziah fell from the window of his room in Samaria. The impact was violent. His body was broken, fragile, on the edge of death. And in that moment, when any man would seek heaven, he looked to the wrong place. Instead of crying out to the Lord, he commanded,
Go and consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron. Ask him if I will recover.
It was not just a decision, it was a defiance, a direct insult to the living God. The King of Israel, called to lead the people in truth, now sought answers from a foreign idol. But before those messengers reached their destination, heaven had already responded. The angel of the Lord spoke to Elijah, and the prophet, once again, rose, without hesitation, without fear. He intercepted the messengers on the road and declared,
Is there no God in Israel? And why do you go to consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron?
Then take this message to the king. You will not get down from the bed you climbed onto. You will surely die.
The messengers returned sooner than expected, and when he saw them, Ahaziah questioned them. And they told everything, every word, every detail. They described the man who had stopped them on the road, a man covered with hair, with a leather belt around his waist. And when he heard, the king's face tightened. He knew there was no doubt.
It's him! It's Elijah the Tishbite! Who does he think he is? Call the captain of the royal guard!
The same voice, the same prophet, the same God. Consumed with anger, he sent a captain with 50 soldiers to bring Elijah by force. They found him on the top of a hill, sitting, still, like a man who had nothing to flee from.
Elijah, man of God, the king commands you to come down immediately.
And Elijah answered, without raising his voice, without haste,
If I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men.
And in that instant, heaven answered. Fire fell, violent, irresistible, and consumed them. But the king's heart still had not learned. A second group was sent, harsher, more arrogant.
Elijah, man of God, come down right now! The king of Israel commands you to come with us!
And Elijah, with the same firmness, answered again. And the fire fell once more, like a seal from heaven. Even then, Ahaziah persisted. A third captain was sent, but this one did not come with commands. He came with fear. He knelt before the prophet and pleaded,
Elijah, man of God, I implore you, spare my life and the lives of these men.
He understood. This was not merely a human confrontation. It was heaven responding to earth. Then the angel of the Lord spoke to Elijah.
Elijah, go down with him. Do not be afraid.
And Elijah went down, not as a prisoner, but as a messenger. Standing before the king, he repeated, without changing a single word,
This is what the Lord says.
Because you sent messengers to consult Baal, and not the God of Israel, you will not get up from the bed you are lying on. You will surely die.